So got the parts together now for step 3. Step 3, we're going to need BD1, which is a step screw, which is 3mm by 20mm long. Again, just use the drawing, offer them up just to make sure, but I know there are, so there's 2 of those. We're going to need BD2, we need to have 4 of those. So these are a step screw. These are the smaller step screws. We're also going to need BD5 for those, and they are 3mm locking nuts. So they're the ones with a little nylon piece inside. And you're going to need some parts here from the various bags from that nice large box that we had inside. So you're going to need the arms. These are all for the suspension for the front arms. So we've got the pieces that we made in step 2, which are these pieces. We've got the H3, which is the smaller of the arms, and H2, which is the larger. And the we're going to need the radius arm, which is this radius arm here, which is from the metal bags again. So you need 2 of those. So we are also going to need these are the arms for the steering and the wheel axle. So you can see here the sort of steering goes onto this section, and this is the wheel axle for the front wheel. So quite a busy step here. So as to do step 3, I'm going to do 2. This is 2 steps basically in step 3. You've got a right and a left. So what I'm going to do, just to make the page a little less busy, I'll do one on camera for you, and you can see how I do that. So I'm going to move the left components, because do the right one first, and that will help me show you how to do this. And we'll do this step here, which is the step screws BD2, and we're going to screw those into this axle, front axle and steering arm. And we're going to pop that onto there, and we need a little bit of grease on the step screws. So these are the small step screws. These are the small ones, and we're going to pop a little bit of grease into there so it can spin freely. And we'll do that next. So I've got a little bit of this is just a white grease, which is a zinc oxide anti-corrosion grease. You can use the grease in the pack if you wish, but as I've got this to hand, I'll use this. You just need a small amount. It don't need to be too heavy with this. It's just literally making sure that there's no corrosion. So pop that into, start this off. And it's a machine screw, so it's going to be fairly easy to do. I get my Tamiya, I'm going to use my large Tamiya screwdriver for this one. So there we are. That's the top screw there. Same again right underneath. The little step screw. A little bit of the grease. Find a hole. There we go. Nip that up tight. So the excess grease, just remove that. Okay, so that's technically popping. That's nice and really freely moves. So that's popping that onto there, and there's a little bit of sort of movement in there as well. So it's a step screw. So that's fine. There we go. also what we now need to do is these arms, the H2 and H3. So the H3, which is the shorter of the two, that's going to go on this top hole, and we've got another step screw, which is the larger of the step screw, BD1. That's going to go through, and again a little bit of grease on here, and you notice the orientation here. This is on the inside, and this is here, so we're going to make sure the orientation is correct as well, and we're going to lock the other end of this screw with one of the BD5. So again, a little bit of grease on here just to make sure. There we go. There we are. Just be more than enough. So let's pop on the screw, not forgetting the arm. So let's pop the arm into the top there, and making sure we keep the orientation, so it's asking us to go from behind there through, there we go, through, here we are, and on the other side we're going to pop on one of these nuts with the nylon locking, so we'll pop that on there. So, and you'll probably find that this, I can use my Tamiya set here again, where I can just pop that on to a point where it's right. I'll put my screwdriver on there, and we'll use the two together. And it's basically a step screw, so once you've screwed through and you've screwed up to where you want it to be, it won't go no more. Oh, there we go, dropping everything onto the mat there. Forgive me, making the noise. So put that back into the orientation where it should be. There we are. So we've now got to do the same with the bottom one, and this is using the radius arm MR2 and a knocking nut again. No grease on this bottom arm one here, so just a case of popping the H2, which is the larger of the arms, through, and we're going to collect the bottom of the holes, and we're going to pop that in there through to the other side. Just jiggle it, and little homage there to Ronnie Barker and Open All Hours. You have to forgive me, one of my favourite comedies, of classic comedies. And on here we're going to screw this to a position, and if you notice carefully on the drawing, what it says here, referring to this radius arm, is to leave a small, these small gaps. So we'll screw this to the point, and the idea is we want to make sure that it freely moves. You know, I don't want it too wobbly, but I don't want it too tight. And you know, there's a little bit of slack there. I'm just going to keep nipping this. See, now that's just pinching. You know, you can't shift that. So I'm just gonna back it off ever so slightly, and you know, that's probably. And I've noticed that when I'm nipping this one up, it's pinched this one as well. So this one's not moving as freely either. So just again, just a touch off. I mean, this one's okay, and that one is kind of there. So there we go. So I've got that one now. That one's, and that one. So there we go. So they're both very freely moving. You can just sort of feel that it's freely moving. So that is how you do that step 3. So I'm going to repeat that again now for the right hand side. Sorry, this was the right hand side. I'm going to repeat that again for the left hand side. So as you can see, I don't need to repeat, so I'll just do that off camera. And so as you can see now, I've done step 3, so I've done both of those arms there, and you'll have to forgive me. I was referring to the drawing here about leaving a small gap so that both the top and lower of these arms will function freely. Many of you mechanics out there will probably recognise what this is, perhaps a little bit OCD. You don't have to do this, but I've got a 0.3 of a mil gap between this bottom arm and the nut being done up on this here, and that's actually quite nice, where it's not too flappy but it's enough air. So again, I've done this on this side, 0.3 of a mil. This is a feeler gauge, and yeah, most people in the mechanics trade will know. There you go. They will know what that is, but it's just me being a little bit exact, so you have to forgive me there. You can probably do it by feel, but I'm one of these people, I like to know what that is, and why. So yeah, so there we are. So step 3 is now complete and done, and that's on to step 4. Okay, so now we're on step 4. And step 4, we need some pieces out of the various parts trees. So for example, these pieces here, B6, and if you look on the drawing here, it actually says carefully cut off the excess portions. So again, I've cut those off very carefully, and I've used a little bit of fine wet and dry paper just to smooth those off, so there's no little excess pieces of plastic from the moulding on there. I've also now collated the MP4. These are these uprights, and those are going to be on each side. Also, I've collected C13. C13 is this piece here. Again, when cutting from the parts tree, just give them a little bit of a sanding with the wet and dry paper, just to take those sort of smooth. It just makes the whole model look better. And of course, I've gone through each of my bags A to E and collected the correct screws. So working from the top here, you can see bag B, these are 3mm by 20mm, and we need 4 of those, so I've collected 4 of those. From bag E, I've collected the screw here, which is a 3mm by 27, again offering up to the drawing to make sure that it's the right length. Make sure you use the right screw for the right section. BE7, which is a 25mm stiffener post. Then you've got the MR4, which are the springs. These are going to form part of the front suspension. And then you've got the MR13, which is this like a grub screw, but a long grub screw. It's like a threaded bar in effect, but it's a 3mm by 12mm long, again offering up to drawing to make sure. And then you've got this cap top hexagonal mount, MR14, that's on there as well. And so I have all the pieces for step 4, and we'll sort of put together step 4. So I'm going to start with this section here of step 4, MR14, MR13, the BE7, the C13, and then our 3mm by 27mm screw. I'm going to start with that. So the threaded bar, that's got to go into the MR14, so I'm just going to pop that in there now. Doesn't say use anything in particular type, but it's tight there. Then you've got BE7. So BE7, just want to check there that there's an indication on the drawing of a line, so just check the indication here. So I'm making sure that's upwards. So you screw the bar assembly into the BE7, that's now tight and in there. Then we've got our C13, again orientation, make sure it's correctly orientated, so that's going to sit in there. And then our B1, which is our 3mm by 27mm, screw into the bottom of there, again using my Tamiya screwdriver, and we're going to screw and make that nice and taut. There we are. And I believe we just need to, I think what we're going to use is got a Tamiya driver here. I'm just going to bring that in, as you can see, just holding that with a Tamiya hex. That's nice and tight. And the only thing we need to do is spin the whole lot around. So the idea, we want to make sure that this is horizontal, this screw's horizontal. So I'm just going to twiddle this nut a little around until I get it horizontal. And what I'm doing is I'm using this as a reference up the middle of the bar, so it's horizontal. There you go, so that's that part there done. So the second half of the build of step 4 is bringing the chassis into play here. So we turn the chassis up the right way round, and we've got the these arms are literally going to be, so your MP4s you're going to have on either side of this section here, with a spring going in the middle and a little bit of anti-wear grease on the little plungers that we've taken off, the B6 little plungers. So I'll do one side and show you how to do that on one side. Got a little bit of the anti-wear grease that came with the Tamiya kit. It's quite a stiff anti-wear grease. So I'm popping some of that on B6 so that it's on there. There we go. It's quite a very stiff. I've not used this before, so this is the first time building the ORV chassis for me. Like I said, this is something that I wanted on when I was a child. So there we go, a little bit of the anti-wear grease. I'm just using a bit of paper to the side there just to make my fingers a little bit less greasy. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this side on, and you can notice I'm keeping the orientation. Use one of our springs that we've got, spring into the plunger. Yeah. There we go. And pop that in like so. And then take our MP4, and we are literally going to be lining up the relevant holes. And you've got on the holes there, you've literally got one on one side and one on the other, and using the BB3s, which are the 3mm by 20mm, we are going to be screwing those through into the car's chassis. So again, use your screwdriver there. So I'm just going to pop 2 of those in so that they are in there. And you've got on the chassis, you've got this section on the chassis where you know when you've got these correct because it lines up. So just going to screw those down, and that is how you put those MP4 onto the side, and just screw those through so they're nicely through. Quite long screws, so give them a good, to sort of torque them down evenly. There we go. So now I'm sort of finger tightish, and I'm finger tight with an extra twist. Finger tight with an extra twist. There we are, and that sits inside the ridge. So I don't know if you can see there, it sits inside the ridge. So again, this step, it's repeating to the other side, and it's a case of doing exactly the same thing. So got the other side and the spring already in place, and before I screw these screws on the other side of the chassis fully closed, we need to take the pre-assembled section that we did earlier with the actual hexagonal mount. This is going to be the body mount for the front post there. We take that, and again checking to make sure the orientation is correct with the drawing. Make sure here we're going to be, these are going to slot through on the MP4s, sorry. Yeah, so you're going to literally screw that tight like that and push it, hold it sort of tightly with your hand there, screw that down, and there we go, and there we are. As you can see there, bring that down to finger tight again, finger tight, plus a bit. Don't go too mad. Go. And there you have, that is step 4 onto the car. So for step 5, we're going to attach the front suspension system that we built previously in step 3, and you've got the right and left of those. We're going to basically put these arms onto the chassis, and to do that we are going to use the step screws, BD1. Again, just pop yourself into bag D, make sure you got the right one. You are, and you've got 4 of those, and we got the locking nuts, the 3mm locking nut. That's again one with a little blue nylon piece inside, and we're technically going to be popping these onto the chassis. The area where we've just done in step 4, we're going to be popping this on and attaching this to the car like so. And that's the pieces we need on the BD1s. On this section over here, this shank section here, we're going to put up a little bit of grease on there as well. So that's what we're going to need to do step 5. So here we are. So now we're going to do the step 5. So we need the left and the right of the arms for the front suspension that we need, and we need to sort that now, which is, there we go. So we've got our left one here. There we go. And what we're going to do, we're going to attach this stabilizer arm has to sort of attach on top of here at a later time, so we just need to make sure that's on top of that area. And you've got the little spring and plunger that we put in step 4. That's where this section here is going to be, and we need to pop that in there. Pre-grease those screws, the step screws, the BD1s, the 3mm by 20mm. I'll pre-grease those so they're all here on the side for me. So I'm going to bring that across, and we're going to go through the front of the car. There we are. Bit of grease on my fingers there. And then once we're through, we're going to use the screwdriver and the small nut spinner just to hold that. And once we're there, lucky for me, I can use screwdrivers both left and right-handed. Trying to do this on camera and hold at the same time, so forgive me. So I'm just going to get the nut on the threads. There we go. So there we go, that's the bottom one. And we do the same with the top. So bringing that in, you might have to put a little bit of pressure as you go past and line up the whole. There you are. A little bit of a jiggle, and here you have to pop another nut on the other side there. These are the ones with the nylons in, and you pop those in there like so, and it's a case of screwing those up to the point where the nylon nuts. So I can use my screwdrivers, no problem, left-handed. There we go. If you haven't got the nut spinner like this, you could always use the Tamiya box spanner. As I've got it, I may as well use it. There we are. And that will be that side. And again, you do the same for the opposite side, and I'll be back once I've done that. So just to show you completing the step 5, I've done the other side here, and I'm just tightening up now the last of the bolts there, and I'm using the box wrench, as you can see you get from Tamiya, and that's now tight, and you can just you can just see you can pop the box wrench on there like so, hold that in one hand and use your screwdriver to tighten that. There we are, done. So you don't have to use the screwdriver set that I have, but like I say, I use it because it's a Tamiya set and it fits the heads perfectly well. So there we go, step 5 there, as you can see, with the front arms now attached to the car. So step 5 is now complete. So for step 6, we're going to need the BA1s, 2 of these from bag A. These are the 3mm by 14mm step screws. We're going to need BA3s, 3mm by 12mm self-tapping screws. We're going to need 2 of those. We're also going to need BC6 washers, 2 washers, 4mm washers, 2 of those, and BD3, which is a 3mm by 15mm self-tapping screw. We also, from the main drawing, going to need this MP5, which is a supporting reinforcing plate. We're going to need the bumper as well. So we've got the bumper, and we need to make sure that we're able to pop that onto the front of the car, and it's going to go into the front of the car here. The step screws are going to be using the, as you can see on here, step screws BA1 and BC6 are going to go through, and they're going to attach to the radius arm to this front end of the car, and the BA3s and the BD3 they are going to attach the bumper. So here we are. Put your, there we go. So your radius arm, and the step screw. There we go. So that's nice and tight. Same again on the other side, excuse me, with my arm coming across. There we go. The other step screw, 3mm by 14mm step screw. Again, just get that into a little bit of a, just catch it once. Once I've caught it once, I can then use the screwdriver. There we go, and there we are. So now, screw that down. Quite a tight fit, but there we go. Nice and tight. So again, you don't have to go too mad. You're screwing into plastic there. So there's your radius arms on the front and left of the car. And what we have now is just to remember here that when you're screwing the bumper into there, you're using the slightly longer 15mm BD3 into the center of that. And that's what we'll do next. So I'm just going to turn that on its side. There we go. There we are. Just got to feel. There we go. Feel for the hole. There we are. There we go. Tighten back up again, so lift them back through again. There we are. So again, nip, so it's nipped up, nip, so it's nipped up, and middle one. Here's a nip. So it's nipped up. There we are. So good job, I remembered that supporting reinforcing plate. That's now on there, and that is now step 6 complete.